Good morning, and welcome back to the Daily Trucking Market Update podcast. I'm your host, Driven, and on this show, I dive into the markets to keep you truck drivers, you owner operators, up to date so you can best position your truck to make the most money. Now, I'll be using the DAT load board, and I appreciate them sponsoring this video. And in return, they've provided you with the link down in the description box for 10% off for your first 12 months, so check it out. Now, stick around. I got a dad joke to tell, and then we'll dive right in.
Rolling down the highway, sun just breaking through. Radio's playing loud, the show's for me and you. Learn how to book your loads and make that money flow. Keep the shiny side up wherever we go.
Now, all that I ask for the little chuckle, or maybe not, is to hit that like button and maybe consider subscribing if you get some value from this, or maybe just a laugh.
Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Let's dive right in with that dad joke. What do you call a pile of cats? A mountain. My daughter's going to like that one. All right, let's get right into it. We are going to start off with the forecast for today. I use weatherstreet.com if you're curious. I don't necessarily recommend this over the road. I think there are better, easier ones to use, but this one has a nice visualization. And I can scroll through and kind of give you an overview of what's going on throughout the day. We've got some rain up there in the Great Lakes states, kind of the northern portion of those. Looks like maybe something in the northwest. We'll see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It doesn't show on the radar right now, but if I just scroll through to the next tab, which is a forecast, let's see here, for 1 p.m. Eastern time, you can see this pop up. We've got a storm that brews. It's got heavy rain. It's got snow. I imagine that snow is all up in the mountains, though, but up there in Washington, in Oregon, in Idaho, and in Montana. So if you're up there in the Northwest, be careful. Look out for that. Looks like a little bit of rain down there in Florida. That's really all that I see for today. For tomorrow, that storm that's over the Great Lakes moves into the Northeast. Does it turn to snow? It doesn't look like it turns to snow, though. But the one that is popping up there in the Northwest looks like it's going to dump quite a bit of snow in Idaho, in Montana, and into Wyoming tomorrow. So if you are headed to the Northwest, be careful. Keep an eye on that radar. Understand what is going on. And then it looks like in a couple of days, you've got that storm turns into quite the storm, spanning from, was that Kansas all the way through into Canada. So yeah, looks like it'll be a pretty bad one there. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into the market update. So I like to start here. This is the national load counts on a state level. This gives us a nice idea of what's going on in the actual states. Now, this is not going to tell us where the freight's at. In a few minutes, I'm going to go over the heat map and show you what markets actually have this freight. And the heat map looks like it should today. I'm going to show you just a quick snippet of yesterday's heat map because it looks like it fixed itself towards the end of the day. So I don't know. I'm a little suspicious. I think it wasn't quite working right. It's technology. I mean, stuff happens. So, but we're back on track today. All right, so let's get right into it. Alabama has 607. Good start. Alabama has 768 loads headed in, but only 298 headed out. No change there. Arkansas, 319 loads in to 507 loads out. So good shape for Arkansas. It's just a shame that it's surrounded by states that don't have great freight. So not a ton of negotiating power there. Arizona, 420 loads in to 457 loads out. So it remains above that 50-50 mark today. Blown away by that. Arizona's not great, but it's doing okay today. California, 1,724 loads headed into it with 2,806 loads available. So pretty solid, really solid for second day in a row. Really good situation for California. So you definitely have that negotiating power. You should use it. Colorado, 567 loads in to 261 loads out. Connecticut, 228 loads in to 130 loads out. DC has 1 load. Delaware, 76 loads in to 63 out. Florida, 3,026 loads in to 421 loads out. Horrendous. Georgia, 2,333 loads in to 757 loads out. Also horrendous. Iowa, 392 loads in to 745 loads out. What an increase there for Iowa. Massive increase in production. Great shape. You've got a lot of negotiating power there in Iowa, so try and use it. Idaho, 94 loads in, 287 loads out. So really good shape starting off the Northwest with Idaho. Illinois, 1,209 loads headed in, 2,798 loads out. Another increase in production there. Excellent shape for Illinois. Sorry, my dog's at my feet. You've got negotiating power there in Illinois. We'll see, kind of what Indiana looks like here in a minute. Yeah, it's in great shape too. And I imagine Wisconsin is likely in excellent shape given what we saw yesterday. So the surrounding states around Illinois show that you have a lot of negotiating power there in Illinois. If you arm yourself with this knowledge, you come across in a friendly manner and you politely tell them why they need to pay you more money, they will. But you just got to do it the right way. I have a video that helps with negotiation techniques, and make no mistake, you are negotiating. If you call them up and you just, this is my number and take it or leave it, like, guess what? That's negotiation. That is a negotiation technique. It's a horrible one, but it is one. And, sometimes it'll work, but you would get way farther if you, just learned how to negotiate a little bit better. Some of you anyway. All right, moving on. Kansas, 297 loads in to 425 loads out. Really good shape for Kansas. Moving the right direction there. Kentucky, 689 loads in, 762 loads out. Great shape for Kentucky. It's it's great shape for Kentucky. It's above the 50-50 mark. Don't get it wrong. You don't have a ton of negotiating power there in Kentucky due to its location, but it is in good shape. So, what that means is that you may not have a ton of negotiating power. You can certainly try. You should always try, but you can certainly try. But also, it should be a representation of, what the loads are posted for on the boards. They should be posted a little bit better. And as we progress through Trump's administration, this will just get better and better. Rates will get better and better. Fuel will come down. Everybody will be happy again. Louisiana, 342 loads in to 296 loads out. That's normal for a Wednesday for Louisiana. Massachusetts, 430 loads in to 265 loads out. It's normal. Maryland, 434 loads in, 338 loads out. A little bit of a slip for Maryland, but we're back to normal numbers there. Maine, 93 loads in, 138 loads out. Michigan, 687 loads in, 1,022 loads out. Excellent shape from Michigan. We'd love to see it. And then Minnesota, 349 loads in, 742 loads out. Also, excellent shape for Minnesota. Those Great Lakes states have just proven to be the best. It kind of bounces back and forth between the Great Lakes states and the Northwest. Yes, I get it. It's at the top of the United States, but this was happening before the weather started to move in, before snow started. So it's just remaining the same, which is, where I'd be putting my truck, especially if I was pulling a van. Well, if I was pulling a van, because that's what I'm covering, right? Missouri, 725 loads in, 1,055 loads out. Good shape for Missouri. Sad part is surrounded by not good states. So what negotiating power you have there gets kind of eaten up by people bouncing over from poorer states with freight. I hate cancel culture. Anyway, Mississippi, 353 loads in to 295 loads out. A bit of a slip for Mississippi. Montana, 55 loads in, 113 loads out. North Carolina, 1,775 loads in to 584 loads out. Terrible shape. The southeast quadrant of the United States, just avoid it. It's horrible. North Dakota, 53 loads in, 153 loads out. Great shape for North Dakota. This has just remained a constant. About this 3-to-1. It bounces back and forth between like a 2-to-1 ratio and a 3-to-1 load to truck ratio. When you have a ratio that's above 1-to-1, that means that some freight is going to sit. So that means that the demand is up for drivers. When the demand is up for drivers, so are the prices, right? If they don't reflect that on the load boards, call and negotiate. Period. End of story. If you go to a state that's in really good shape, North Dakota, like it's 100 loads, right? Is that the end of the world? No. But in some of these states, it's thousands of loads. And the brokers will be more aggressive to get that load moved. You got to look at all the factors and take in everything that's going on. Nebraska, 193 loads in to 234 loads out, above the 50-50 mark for Nebraska. That's good for Nebraska. You don't have a ton of negotiating power there, unfortunately. And like the rates are not necessarily going to reflect it, but it's not bad. New Hampshire, 100 loads in, 25 loads out. Jersey, 622 loads in to 1,231 loads out. Very good shape for Jersey. Normally, when we see the decrease in loads in, typically the loads out number is about 1,000. So we're up a couple hundred loads today. They've got some freight to move. So really good shape for Jersey. You've got some negotiating power there, clearly. New Mexico, 155 loads in, the 93 out, normal. Nevada, 200 loads in, 416 loads out. That's solid for Nevada. That's seems to be the standard. That kind of that mark all week, and I'm pretty sure all last week as well. So hopefully this stays the standard, because that means the rates will come up coming out of Nevada. So New York, 832 loads in to 1,133 loads out. Decent shape for New York. Those are normal numbers. Ohio, 1,345 loads in to 1,849 loads out. So not as many trucks headed in today, but the same amount of freight is available. So good shape for Ohio. Not great. As crazy as this sounds, it could be better. This is just essentially normal. But that being said, there is a little bit of negotiating power there. Is there a ton? No. Would I be super adamant about getting that bump? I guess it depends on what it was posted for, but not necessarily. Given that it is Ohio, usually the loads are posted for decent. But it also depends on where you're going too. So keep that in mind. Oklahoma, 497 loads in to 308 loads out. Oregon, 146 loads in, 440 loads out. So we are seeing an increase in production in Oregon, and not as many trucks headed in. So Oregon's in really good shape for negotiation there. PA, 1,610 loads in. That's where everybody's headed over there in the Northeast, with 1,875 loads out. So it's nice to see that the loads out is being sustained despite as many loads that are headed in for PA. So it's not going to affect the surrounding states, which is good. That's really good. If all the freight is over on the Philly side, though, Ohio will be affected. I would say that if the western half is average or better, it's not going to affect Ohio, and that will give Ohio just a little bit more negotiating power than usual. Rhode Island, 63 loads in to 19 loads out. South Carolina, 916 loads in to 366 loads out. That's an even bigger slide for South Carolina. Not good shape. Sad to see it. South Dakota, 91 loads in, 116 loads out. That's a bit of a surprise. Tennessee, 976 loads in, 801 loads out. I mean, a little bit of an increase, I guess, but overall it just remains the same. Tennessee's not the greatest of areas. If you are going to Tennessee, though, very likely it's going to be the Memphis area. I don't know. We'll see on the heat map here in a minute. Texas, 3,947 loads in, 2,540 loads out. So healthy increase for loads out for Texas, but with almost 4,000 trucks headed in, that's just going to get eaten up, unfortunately. So yeah, not the greatest state for freight, or to make a lot of money, I should say. Utah, 271 loads in to 370 loads out. Really good shape for Utah. Certainly an increase in production there. Give those brokers over there what they're not used to. Give them a little negotiation. You got the power there. Virginia, 924 loads in to 630 loads out. So we are seeing a slide for Virginia. Not the best for Virginia. Vermont, 33 loads in to 58 loads out. Washington, 292 loads in, 453 loads out. So that's a little bit higher than normal for loads in for Washington. But you've got a healthy amount of loads out. So you've got negotiating power in there in Washington. Northwest is looking really solid. You should be making the money up there in the Northwest. Wisconsin, 635 loads in, 1,632 loads out. That's 1,000 more loads than there are trucks there. That's a lot. That's a lot. You've got some serious negotiating power there. I mean, serious. You like use it. It's there. It's obviously there. Numbers don't lie. It's there in black and white. Black and white. West Virginia, 108 loads in, 199 loads out, and Wyoming, 57 loads in, 207 loads out. Now, normally I do the trend lines next, but I'm going to cover those on Mondays and Tuesdays. I am going to show it though, so you're welcome to pause this, but I'm not going to go into it. It really doesn't change that much throughout the week, and really, it's kind of unnecessary. So I will put it up on the screen like this, so you're welcome to pause and look, but I'm not going to go into it. Fuel today is $3.55 on average across the United States. So this is what today looks like. This is what yesterday wound up looking like at the end. I mean, look at that. Like, that's solid for an entire day of freight being moved, and not some loads get added throughout the day, but the healthy majority chunk of that is in the mornings when we're covering this. So for this map to be this colorful after the day is over, it just tells me that something was off yesterday. This is what it should like. Actually, as a matter of fact, at the end of the day, I don't know if you ever looked at this at the end of the day. At the end of the day, a lot of this is blue. What it looks like in the morning of what yesterday's video looked like. I was shocked to see this. So still, I believe nobody could tell me otherwise that something was off yesterday morning. So anyway, this is what we have today. And I think this is a nice reflection. We've got a lot of increase in some of these states, and some of these states just kind of holding on to what they normally do. But it's good shape. Up there in the Northwest, you've got the majority of the freight's going to be in that Portland market. But Washington was in decent shape. But what I will say is if you're headed up to Seattle, make sure that you check the Portland market. It's not that far of a bounce. And if it's going to be a significant increase in pay, then certainly bounce down there. That's where you're going to have the most negotiating power, and that's where you're going to get the best rates. Moving south into California, the San Francisco market is normally a little bit hotter than this. Unfortunately, it's not. But that being said, the Sacramento market is usually a little bit colder than this. So it's a bit closer to average. So just kind of average freight across the board for anything north of Los Angeles. The Los Angeles market is hot. Even San Diego's got some freight. Like, California's just in really good shape, but the majority of the freight is down there in the Los Angeles market. The entirety of Nevada looks to be just average. So with that healthy increase, a lot of times we've been seeing the northern half have all of the freight and the southern half being blue. Well, we've got the southern half being or at average, right? So the southern half's in really good shape. Nevada, I would say, is a good place to get freight today. This changes every day, right? So today, Idaho, the freight's in the southern half. In Utah, it's in the western half. I don't know. It's probably around Salt Lake the majority of the time. Arizona, the Phoenix market shows to be hot. I don't know. Do that what you will. Over in Texas, we've got kind of the norm. Both markets are hot. Houston, Dallas, and the west, and that market just west of Dallas. Even down in the valley, it looks like they got some freight down there, and that's interesting. But I would say that Dallas probably wins out. They typically have a little bit better paying freight coming out of Dallas. Why? I don't know. The port's in Houston. Wouldn't it make sense that you make better money near a port? You would think so. You would think so. Oh, don't get me started. That is such a sore spot for me. I'm sorry. I get PTSD every time I look at this map and I go over Texas. I apologize. So the southern half of Louisiana is a little bit cold. It's normally at least average, but it is not today. So don't necessarily look to Louisiana for freight today. Up there in Arkansas, looks like the Memphis market does have the freight, but Arkansas just kind of in general is doing okay. In Missouri and Kansas, the market is very clearly the Kansas City market. Not a surprise there, but the rest of Kansas actually looks to be in okay shape. Yellow is average, so showing average. But considering that we've seen nothing but blue, average is good these days. So, yeah. Down there in the southeast, if you're down there, bless your heart. Hopefully, you're close to Atlanta. That's all I can say about that. Looking at the Midwest, you just got color everywhere, right? Kentucky looks decent. Illinois, the freight is going to be in Chicago, right? But a good portion of Illinois is shown to be at least average. So that's solid. Indiana, the freight's in the southern half. I like to see those markets kind of surrounding Chicago to be average, because you will get less deadhead from the people that are like in the bottom portion of Michigan, or up there up there close to those markets, obviously in Indiana, but in Illinois, you get less bounce all the way to Chicago, which it's just good for everybody, right? You get paid more, they get paid more, everybody's getting paid more. So we like to see those markets at least average that are close to Chicago. Ohio. So the entirety of Ohio is above average, aside from that little sliver over there in the southeast. But love to see that, and love to see that coupled with the western half of Pennsylvania being at least average. So you're not going to get a bunch of bounce over from the Pittsburgh market eating up some of that Ohio freight. This just looks really, really good. The Midwest looks really, really good. Even PA looks to be solid. I don't know. There were a lot of trucks headed in, so I'm not sure. I didn't run Northeast that much, so I'm not super familiar with it. I'm going off what I'm reading here. And I mean, obviously, I went to Ohio a lot. I pulled a skateboard, I pulled a step deck, and I went to Ohio a ton. And obviously, so I was looking at that Pittsburgh market. Pittsburgh market was just meh, but that is the flatbed market. That's not the van market. So just take that with a grain of salt. I did pull a van elsewhere. I covered all over the Midwest. I loved going up to the Northwest. I went over to California, kind of covered everything but that Northwest. And I damn sure didn't take a van down to Florida. It just didn't happen. I'm not even sure I took a van over to Atlanta. I don't know. I don't think y'all care. Anyway, moving on. Sorry, sidetrack. Squirrel. New Jersey, the freight's up in the northern half. Looks like Long Island's doing all right. That's interesting. And then the Great Lakes states, you got Michigan just kind of all across the board in a little bit above average. Normally, the freight is in the western half, and then that Detroit market's usually kind of dead. But for the past couple of days, it's actually shown some life. So Michigan seems to be a really good state. But the king of the states right now would be Wisconsin. You've got a ton of negotiating power. If you happen to go past Chicago and go up there towards Green Bay, the Green Bay market is where the freight's at in Wisconsin. It looks like there's freight all the way up from Chicago, all the way up to Green Bay. So just really, really good shape. You got the Minneapolis market over there in Minnesota. That's where the freight's going to be at over there. You just can't go wrong really with Wisconsin at this point, because if you're in the southern portion of the state where there's not a ton of freight, you're close to Chicago. If you're in the northern portion of Wisconsin, well, you're in great shape. If you're over there in Minneapolis, it's not that far to bounce. So, just kind of, you just really can't miss, right? Anybody that is doing well up there in the markets that happens to watch this, leave a comment down below. Let me know how you doing. But that's it. That's going to cover it for today. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed it, give this video a like, leave a comment. That helps the algorithms and all the things. Share this with somebody. Let somebody know what I'm doing. Let somebody know that they either need to be doing this on their own or that I do it every day for free. All they got to do, I hope, is is subscribe. They don't even really have to subscribe. They can just watch. But anyway, y'all keep that shiny side up. But as always, stay driven. I'll see y'all tomorrow.